So after many years of shooting on DSLRs, I finally made the switch to mirrorless and I picked myself up a Canon R8. And I've been using this thing full time as my main camera for about a month now. And I said in my unboxing video that I would kind of make a 1 month later video talking about the things I like or maybe the things I don't like about the camera. So that's what we're gonna talk about today. I did a lot of research before picking up this camera. So there's some things that I'd like to kind of discuss in terms of why I made that decision and if that actually ended up being a good decision on my part, things like that. So I don't have the camera in my hand because I'm actually filming on it right now. So I'm using this box as a placeholder, but I do have the camera. It's just that, it's right there. So when I was thinking about upgrading to a mirrorless camera, I was heavily debating between the R8, the R7, and the R6 Mark II or whatever it was. I eventually landed on the R8, and there's multiple reasons that I did do this, and that's kind of what I'm going to break down was my thought process into why I picked it and, you know, some of the things that kind of led me to this purchase rather than picking up one of the other options. So just kind of getting it out of the way right away, I absolutely love this camera. I have very, very few bad things or negative things to say about this camera. I absolutely think it was the best choice for me, and hopefully some of these reasons are going to kind of maybe steer you in that direction as well, or make you realize that you maybe want the R7 or another option. But the number one thing that kind of got me on this was the full frame. So the Canon R7 doesn't have a full frame, it has a crop sensor on it. The R8 has a full frame sensor. Now the R6 also has a full frame sensor, but it's a lot more expensive. So when I was looking at full frame, R8 was a little bit more in my budget that I was looking to spend. And the 24.2, I think it is, megapixel sensor is insane. The detail, the low light, it's really, really impressive. How well it works, the quality of the photos, I'm blown away. So this was definitely a big upgrade for me because I was coming from a Canon EOS 80D, which was my old DSLR. So it is a big jump, but the quality is incredible. I'm very, very happy with that. So out of the negative things that I've heard, most of them have a very easy solution to fix that or kind of relegate that problem. So for example, one of the things some people complain about is that it feels a little bit too small in their hands. So I don't have the biggest hands. I definitely don't have small hands, but I don't have massive hands. But some people complain that their pinky hangs off the bottom of the grip. So this is my old camera. This isn't the R8 because like I said, I'm filming on the R8, but this one is a lot bulkier. So for this one, I was able to hold it all the way with all my fingers covering it. Some people complain that because the R8 is a bit of a smaller body, that their pinky kind of hangs off on the bottom and they're kind of holding it with only, you know, 3 of their fingers, not the pinky. I don't have that problem. I find it's definitely a little bit smaller, but I can still hold it comfortably. I really didn't notice that issue in the holding. But if that's the case, you can actually buy a little extender that pops off the bottom that Canon sells, or I think third parties also sell it, and you can have an extender. So for me, that wasn't a deal breaker. I don't think it should be a deal breaker for a lot of people because there is a way to fix it. Or a lot of people find that using the lightweight body with a big lens is uncomfortable and doesn't feel very good. I use my 70-200 with the EF to RF adapter, so it's even bigger than this, on it all the time, and I don't notice. I don't think that, you know, that's a deal breaker, that the lens is too big for the small camera body. Maybe if you're using like, you know, one of those like massive ones, then that's something to consider. But for the majority of people who are probably using this camera, shouldn't be an issue. The second thing that I've noticed some people talk about is the battery life. So I will say definitely, especially coming from the DSLR, which is the older big batteries, the battery life is definitely not as good. But again, you can just pick up a second battery. They're not that expensive. I haven't found the need to do that. You know, I've been able to do all of my shoots, my videos and my photos on a single battery. But again, I haven't shot for 8 hours in one day. So if you're on a bigger shoot, you might need to pick up an extra battery or maybe 2 extra batteries. But again, just having to do that and, you know, when the time comes, swap out your battery in like 10 seconds. I don't think that's the biggest deal. It's really not a deal breaker. It's easy to fix. Even on some of the other cameras, I always recommend having multiple batteries. I haven't picked one up yet, but you definitely should. So I don't think that's a deal breaker. Again, the battery life really hasn't affected my workflow at all, and it likely won't as long as you have a backup battery if you need it. Next, I'm going to talk about the SD cards. And this is something to keep in mind for a select few people. On the Canon R8, there's only one SD card slot. On the R7, I'm not 100% sure about the R6, but on the R7, there's dual SD card slots. This would be one of the main things that I think you should keep in mind if you're debating between the R7 and the R8, is that the R8 only has one, the R7 has two. So this doesn't matter for me because I, shoot a lot of travel, landscapes, lifestyle, street. I'm kind of doing my own thing. But if you're a wedding photographer or you're shooting a lot of events or a lot of corporate stuff and you want to have the two SD card slots, either to shoot redundant or to have enough room to shoot on both cards, that could be a deal breaker. If I shot weddings and I was only using a single card, I would maybe be a little bit nervous just in case there's an SD card failure, you don't have that backup card. But for me, this was not an issue. I very, very rarely shoot things like that, so it's really not a big deal. But just keep that in mind that if this does apply to you, that would be one of the few things that I would have maybe chosen the R7. So the next point that I've heard people talk about is overheating during video. I've seen a lot about this online and I've heard a lot about it, and I was a little bit weary. I've never experienced this. I've been filming all my videos on the R8, and sometimes I'm shooting for 30, 45 minutes straight on my camera. I've had no issues. Granted, I'm in an air-conditioned condo right now. The overheating that I've heard is from people who are shooting 4K 60 on a 30-degree day directly in the sun. Then apparently there's some overheating, but it's not like it necessarily damages the camera from what I understand. At least it more shuts it down and you have to wait for it to cool off. It's not like a permanent damage thing. So if that's your thing and you're out in the desert and you're shooting 4K video all day, that might be something to take into consideration, and maybe getting the R6 or something that has better cooling. But for, I'd say 90% of people, likely you'll be okay. Again, I've been shooting out in the sun, photos and videos, and I've never had any issues. So I really don't think that's too big of a deal for most people. Another point that I've heard people kind of not sure about is the lack of IBIS, the in-body stabilization in the camera. So this is an interesting one. I use some lenses that have the IBIS built in, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. For me, this doesn't really affect me. I use a tripod when I'm taking a lot of photos. I really haven't noticed it that much. Definitely not a deal breaker enough for me to be willing to spend a lot more money for like the R6. I think this could be an issue if you're doing a lot of handheld videos, like if you're doing a vlog or something like that. I don't typically do that. Mine's on a tripod right now. So I haven't noticed that. There is kind of, I believe, don't quote me on this, there's like an electronic stabilization or kind of like an AI stabilization that you could do in the camera, as well as you can also do that in post if you wanted to. And I've heard that pretty much fixes everyone's issues. Unless you're really going on a run and you're bouncing, I don't think that's the biggest deal. So that's just another thing that it might be a lot more of a bigger deal for a certain group of people, but I'd say for the majority, including myself, doesn't make that big of a deal. The last thing I want to kind of talk about that I was unsure about was the weather sealing. So I do a lot of photography in the snow. I live in Canada, in the rain. This was a bit of a bummer. Granted, I just bought this expensive brand new camera. When it's pouring rain out, I'll take my DSLR because this thing is weather sealed. The R8 is not weather sealed. This thing has literally been out in blizzards, snowstorms, thunderstorms, everything. This thing has gone through the ringer. I probably just won't do that on my R8 because I do have a different camera that I can if the time kind of requires. Like I'm going to Niagara Falls and I'm probably gonna go on the Maid of the Mist. I'm gonna be using that, not that. Even if it was weather sealed, to be honest, just because I'd rather not risk my fancy camera. But again, most people who are, purchasing an expensive piece of equipment likely will try to keep it out of the rain and the weather, unless you're specifically, in that environment. But again, not a big deal breaker. So I kind of mentioned some of those negative aspects. So what leaned me towards this is there are so many pros: the full frame, the lightweight body, the price. It is absolutely, probably in my opinion at least, the best camera for the price option. If you can afford one of the more professional cameras like an R6, or I think it's the R3, R5, whatever it is, those super expensive ones, if you have the money and budget is not something that you want to take into consideration when you're buying your camera, then I would say you should definitely upgrade. But for the bang for your buck, basically getting the entire internals of the R6 with the full frame, the same sensor, everything in a lightweight body, and for significantly cheaper. You can even buy this on sale, and it is definitely an incredible professional quality camera for a really, really good price. So those few negatives definitely don't outweigh all of the positives of this camera. So kind of all of this rambling, all this kind of thoughts to say is, after using this camera for a month in low light, I've taken pretty much all the photos imaginable. I've been doing macro, I've been doing everything with this camera. I 100% would recommend it to everybody, unless you fall into some of those groups that I mentioned. If you're shooting weddings, if you really, really care about the IBIS in the body, or if you're, a professional, quote unquote, you might want to do a bigger upgrade. But for your kind of hobbyist or kind of, high level content creator, things like that, definitely recommend this camera. I am absolutely in love. I'm so glad I made the upgrade. It's really been a game changer for me, so I'm super thrilled. So this was just a bit of a video of me yapping, but I just wanted to give my thoughts on, after using it for a month, all of those things that I was unsure about when I bought it. Did they make a difference? No. I'm glad I bought it. I have no regrets. So hopefully, if you do the same, maybe this video can give some input there and help you kind of push you over the edge and make you upgrade to the R8, or maybe push you in the other direction and get an R7 or an R6. Who knows? But hopefully this video was helpful to you. If you learned something, if you got some value from this, please click like. And if you like more videos like this, click subscribe and check out my other videos. You can also check out my photography on Instagram @thesneakylens. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.